2 grand every 2 weeks.
Like 20 grand in the savings, like sometimes 30.
Yeah.
I fear that I'm never going to feel as financially well off as I did on my first couple of professional contracts.
And sometimes they get quite a heavy bonus based on those commissions as well.
I found myself on cruise dock again, and while most people are arguing about buffet lines and drinks packages, there seems to be one subject that people are obsessed with: crew salaries. How much do crew really make? Are those tip videos real? Are some making thousands while other crew are just simply scraping by? Well, that is what we're going to get into today. We're going to be looking at real TikToks from real crew members, and I'm going to be telling you about my own experience working on cruise ships for 10 years. So if you want to know the truth about how much crew really make, this is the one.
It's the money.
When it comes to crew salaries, TikTok makes it look like there are two extremes. There are people who are earning thousands, and then there are people who are counting the pennies. Honestly, it completely depends on where you're from and what job that you do on board. Because if you're from the Philippines or Eastern Europe and you're earning dollars, well, that's going to go a long way when you take that money back home. Whereas if you're from England or Australia and you're earning dollars, it's not going to go quite as far. However, that doesn't mean it's not worth working on a cruise ship if you're from England and Australia. I did it for 10 years, and many people from those countries work on cruise ships for 30, 40 years. But I am going to get into the advantages of working at sea and money later on. First, I want to explain how ship pay actually works. Is it an hourly salary? Is it tips? Like, what's going on?
I wish we got paid hourly because we would be making bank on board. However, most of us are actually under contract. So we have a contract that tells us how many hours that we are allotted to work per day and what that max is. For example, on my contract, I'm not allowed to work more than 11 hours per day, and I get paid each month. I have a little metallic card, kind of in the shape of a credit card, that I use every single day to clock in and out. There's just different stations set around the ship. No matter if I'm going to the theater for 2 hours or if I'm just going to help in the stairwell for like 10 minutes, every single time I'm active on duty, I clock in and out with that card. Then, in theory, all of our hours go up to a head of department that keeps track of all of our hours and makes sure we're not working more than those 11 hours per day allotted per contract. However, I've never seen a breakdown of hours, and I'm sure there are days that I've worked more than that. But there are also days where there's just not a lot to do around the ship, or somebody is sick and they don't work at all. So maybe they take an average of the month. That would be my best guess. So every single month I've made the same pay that is promised on my contract. I do have some friends though that work in commission work, whether in the shops or some people work in like the 4D theater simulators that are all based on sales.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get quite a heavy bonus based on those commissions as well. So if you really want to break down the numbers, I'll be super transparent here. My last contract I signed for no more than 11 hours per day, 7 days a week, so that'd be 77 hours a week, and I made $1,500 for the month. So once you do the math, it's probably less than $5 an hour.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to talk you guys out of doing it just because of the pay. Because a lot of us on board do it because of the passion. Because we get to travel and learn languages and cultures and see the world. And every cruise line pays a little differently. But yeah,
definitely.
A few more dollars would definitely not hurt.
So everyone has a salary if they work on a cruise ship, but sometimes that salary can be topped up by commission or tips depending on what job you do. So you might be thinking, well, why are they so strict on clocking in and out and keeping track of your hours if you're not paid hourly? Well, it's kind of the opposite to any job on land. The reason they keep track of your hours is to make sure you're getting enough time off rather than to see how many hours you're actually doing. Because as she said, although you are contracted to a certain amount of hours, some days you might work less than 12 hours a day, and some days you might work more. For example, you're finishing your shift, but there is an emergency, so you have to go to your muster station. But you can't be like, well, sorry guys, I've actually clocked off, so I'm not going to do that. Or some nights we would finish our shift in the shops at 11 p.m. at night, but maybe there was a discrepancy with how much money we took versus how much we actually sold. So then it would take 2 hours for people to figure out where the discrepancy was. So we would leave at 1 in the morning. That obviously doesn't happen every night, but it can happen. And if it does happen, it's just a thing. Or if you do finish at 10 p.m, but then you get a bad weather warning by the captain, so you have to tie everything down, like in the shops. You would have to make sure that the perfume was secure on the shelf. So if the ship was rocking throughout the night, we weren't going to turn up to the shops the next morning and find hundreds of dollars worth of perfume smashed on the floor. So that's the reason it's important to keep track of your hours. But when I worked for Steiner, I did break my hours down. I'll have to find out if I still have the spreadsheet, but I did break my hours down and worked out that I was earning about $4 an hour, which was a little bit depressing. But I was 19, 20. I was traveling around Australia, Dubai, Europe. I was meeting all of these people. So to be honest, I wasn't really too concerned with the fact that I was earning below minimum wage, because I was just having the time of my life. So what I will say is, if you think that you're going to go on board and you're going to obsess over your hourly rate, it's probably not for you, because you're not going to enjoy it if you're constantly preoccupied with how much money you're earning an hour. Because going to work on a cruise ship isn't just a job, it's a complete change of lifestyle. And I think it's really important to look at it 360. Maybe you're earning less when you work out the hourly rate, but look at what you're getting. But I do want to talk about the salary range, because it does vary a lot. Entry positions do start at like $1,000 a month, but as I've told you in previous videos, I know a guy who's earning between $11,000 and $14,000 a month on one ship. So there's a lot of grey area when it comes to how much money people are earning on cruise ships.
Youth counselor on a cruise ship in my company, which is, I'm not gonna say, it's around 1,500 starting, 1,500 US dollars.
And this is why cruise lines, I'll just pause it. This is why cruise lines are so cagey about people revealing what their salary is, because there is so much variability depending on the job, what cruise line you work for, where you're from in the world.
So my two positions, my seasonal, youth counselor or youth staff, and regular. A regular, letter of employment, no longer months, so mga 8 months. Youth staff, during those months na maraming bata. So mga summer, it's close to 2,000 already. Close to 2,000 US dollars.
So she's on between 1,500 to 2,000.
It's actually, it's more than that. Sorry, not to filter zesty. But yes, it's more than that. It is more than that. Because I ain't about to put it on a spiel, but it's more than that.
So other roles like restaurant stewards earn significantly more. Also, it depends on seniority, and that is also before tips. And speaking of tips, this is definitely where the gold mine can be found if you're good at your job. And the same with commission-based jobs.
Alright guys, let's talk about this. The only reason, or the main reason, you want to join a cruise ship, although you might want to join for traveling, that is fine, but today we're going to talk about tips. So how much of tips do you get in a month? Short answer is there's no specific amount of tips you get in a month. But here's the thing, I know certain people get like $100 a cruise, $50 a cruise, but also certain people get like $1,000 a cruise. This depends on where the ship is coming from and where the ship is going and the type of clientele the ship has.
Yeah.
So all this affects the amount of money you're gonna have at the end of the month. Although you get like paid every 2 weeks, which is a whole different video I'm gonna make on that. So if you want to work on a cruise ship, just drop a follow.
Yeah, this is a massive thing to mention as well, is a lot of it is dependent on the ship you're on and where the ship is going from. So for example, it's well known in the cruise industry that if you are on a ship going from Galveston, Texas, you're probably going to earn a lot of money because there's a lot of wealthy people in Texas. Oil. So when it comes to the end of your contract and requesting your next ship, a lot of people who want to earn a lot of money will request to go on a ship that has cruises leaving from Texas. So the reason I'm mentioning it is because you could be amazing at your job, but if you are on a cruise that is perhaps a cheaper cruise leaving from Miami, I'm not saying all cruises from Miami are cheap, but you know, some of them are, then you're probably going to earn less. Whereas if you are on a really expensive cruise or maybe a really premium cruise line who attracts passengers who have more money, yeah, you're going to earn more because people have more money to tip with. So what usually happens is if you are working a commission-based job or a tip-based job, when you first start out with a cruise line, they will typically put you on the cruise ships that offer the more affordable cruises, right? And if you prove yourself on those cruise ships and you really work hard and you have great reviews and you get good tips on there, then when it comes to doing your next contract, they're going to be more willing to put you on a high earning ship that goes from Galveston, or maybe it's in Europe. So for example, when I worked for Diamonds International selling jewelry, and it was a lot harder to sell premium really expensive jewelry on cruises going from Miami than it was to sell the same jewelry on cruises that were leaving from Galveston. Because it just so happened that the passengers getting on board in Galveston were older people with money who like to splurge on diamond earrings, rings, necklaces. And also for this reason, it can be really up and down. Like one cruise you might make a few $100s in tips, and the next cruise you might make $2,000 in tips. And the same with commission-based jobs. When I worked in the shops, one cruise you don't sell anything and you make barely any commission, but the next cruise, for whatever reason, just because the clientele's different, you make an absolute shitload of money and the commission's great. So sometimes it really has nothing to do with how good you are at your job, and it's just pure luck. So for example, I have a friend who's earning on average $9,000 a month now. She's on a certain ship, which is incredible. She was doing the same job, exactly the same, on a different ship a few months ago, and she was earning $5,000 a month, which is still a great amount of money to be earning. But just because the ship's different, the itinerary's different, therefore the passengers are different, she's earning an extra $4,000 a month. But the reason that the company gave her that ship is because she was already doing well on the more affordable ship. Just like with most jobs, everyone starts out on a relatively low to reasonable salary, and the longer you're with the company, the harder you work, the better you get at your job, the more responsibility you take on, the more money you make. So this is the thing with working on cruise ships. There is a great amount of potential that you will eventually end up earning a really, really good amount of money. But yes, like most jobs, you are going to start off earning a pretty regular amount of money, whether that be between like $1,000 to $3,000. And again, when people break this down into how much they're getting paid an hour, like I did, and worked out that I was getting paid $4 an hour, you're like, well, what am I doing this for? Like, why don't, especially being from England, like, why don't I just go and get a job in England and then get paid more per hour? Because I am not going to get what I get from my cruise ship job from a job in England. Yeah, I'm going to earn more money an hour, but I'm not going to be traveling the world. I'm not going to be meeting all these incredible people. I'm not going to be experiencing different cultures and learning more about myself because I'm away from my hometown. And I think there are some things in life that are just more valuable than money, which is experience. Now, the other thing is there are very few expenses when you live on a cruise ship, which means that even though you're making $4 an hour, you still will be able to save more working on a cruise ship than you can working on land. And I have definitely noticed this living on land now. I have to pay for petrol, I have to pay for rent, I have to pay for food, which brings me on to What do you actually have to pay for when you're on board, and what do you get for free?
What do cruise ship workers have to pay for, and what do we get for free? So my name's Gage, I'm a cruise director on a cruise ship, and the biggest things that we get for free to start off, clearly room and board. So we stay on the ship, we don't have to pay for rent or worry about anything like that, which is really nice because that's a major concern on land. So on the ship you completely get your room for free. Some people get a roommate, some people don't, depending on what your job is and what your function on the ship is. The other thing is food. So depending on your function, you can go up to the Lido, which is kind of the buffet where the guests eat for free. You can also go to the dining room. You can go to the specialty restaurants, but you do have to pay after you use your perk. You usually get 1 perk per place each month. In addition to that, you can also go to the crew mess, the crew cafeteria, and the crew areas where most of the crew eats completely for free. So you don't have to worry about that. Your food bill is very, very low because of it. Now, the things we pay for. Number one, we do have to pay for Wi-Fi. So if you want internet, you do have to pay for it. It does not come complimentary. You can get the free plan, which just includes WhatsApp, which is a texting service, basically, and that's pretty much it. And the other thing, if you do want snacks or anything like that, besides the food and the Lido and the crew mess, you can buy them in the crew grocery store. It's like a crew store. You can buy like snacks and drinks and toiletries and things like that. You do have to pay for things like that, clearly. But in addition, you can also go buy alcoholic drinks and coffees and things too. Now, we do have house accounts, some of us.
He has a house account because he's a cruise director. My manager on Virgin had a house account, so he basically got his like coffee paid for. The art gallery, my really good friend worked in the art gallery for a number of years, and she had a house account because the idea was if they had a passenger who bought a very expensive piece of artwork, then they would be able to buy that passenger a glass or a bottle of champagne or something to celebrate their purchase. So you only really have house accounts if you're reasonably higher, if you're a manager of a department or above.
Which means that you can go to the guest areas and use like a certain amount of money each day and get free drinks. And I use that pretty often when I'm out and about, walking on the floor, interacting with the guests, doing things like that. So that does come for free. The other thing that is for free is the shore excursions. If we want to go on a shore excursion, you can sign up for an escort program. And if they have room, they'll put you on a guest shore excursion as kind of a second helper, but you still get to go on it for free, which is really, really nice and a major plus.
Here's how much money I spend every day as a crew member working on a cruise ship. First though, it's really important to know what I don't spend my money on. And most importantly, that's my room. It's completely free, comes with a job, and certain jobs get certain types of rooms. I'm a solo guitarist on this ship, and that means I get this room, which is really huge compared to most cruise ship cabins. Last contract, I was in a band, so that means I got this room. Both are free, just different sizes. And then there's food. $0 spent on food. I eat down at the crew mess every single day, and I could in theory go to other restaurants on board and spend money, but ultimately I'm here to work and save as much as possible. All right, now that that's out of the way, what do I actually spend my money on? Soda. I know it's really bad for me, but it's just a part of my life, and I buy 2 sodas per day. Comes out to $1.72. Secondly, I spend my money on internet. It costs me $12 a day, and that gets me 3 hours at around 1 megabyte per second or so. If the network is super busy, then it can be a little bit slower. So there we have it. I spend $411 per month for 2 sodas and 3 hours of internet each day.
No, that's not bad at all, Brian. What I will say is Royal Caribbean is one of the more expensive cruise lines when it comes to crew internet. So if you're on a different cruise line, you could be spending more or you could be spending less. $12 a day is pretty pricey though. I think most cruise lines now offer a monthly plan for like $60. It ranges massively, but I suppose that would still, I don't know. Anyway, it could be more, it could be less. Internet is as you guys probably know by now, it's a huge debate. So like he said, he spends money on soda. I would always spend money on coffee. Some people go to crew bar and, spend money on alcohol in the evenings. But the crew cafe where you got your coffee, it was like $1.50 for your cappuccino in the morning. And then crew bar charged like between $2 and $3 for a gin and tonic, or it'd be like $1.50 for a beer. So all of the crew drinks are very cheap on board. So by that logic, you might be thinking, well, shit, if I'm earning $2,000 a month and let's go with Brian's numbers, and we're spending $411, it's going to be really easy to save money.
Is it easy to save money working on a cruise ship? For me, my first contract, I knew I wanted to put away £5,000.
5,000 is a good number.
I knew that. I went into the contract knowing that is what I wanted to save. I know for a lot of people in other countries, because of the exchange rate, they are making a lot of money. For me, with the exchange rate from dollars to pounds, I'm losing money. I'm losing quite a lot of money. So obviously it's not as much like an incredibly high paid job for me.
But then you have to focus on what you are gaining from the job, which is you're meeting people, you're travelling the world, the experience.
But it's the saving money that and not having to spend as much that's obviously what's making it more worthwhile for me. If you did want to save even more money, you obviously have all your food and everything provided on the ship. So say it's a port day, you can get off and go and have a look around and do some like free things, but you don't have to go out to eat. You can literally just come back to the ship to eat. As much as obviously I'd recommend saving money, to stay sane on working on a cruise ship that you are on for however long your contract is, please get off the boat. Get off the boat, even if it's just something cheap, like go and have some food.
And that is a really important point. When I worked on board, I did see a lot of people who would just work and sleep, and they would never do anything because they were providing for their family, which I totally understand, and they wanted to save as much as they could, which is great. However, what I will say is those people always looked absolutely miserable. And you going out and having a nice meal in port, which is like $20 here and there, or you going to crew bar every now and again, is not going to ruin your ability to save a large amount of money. I think some people can get too hyper-focused on the amount of money they're saving and completely miss the experience. And what she said about staying sane on board a cruise ship, it is important to stay sane because yes, there is free food in the crew mess and in the buffet. Like you can eat on a cruise ship for free, but you are going to want to go off and have, I don't know, just get some fast food, or if you're in Mexico, you're going to want to get some like traditional Mexican food or traditional Italian food if you're in Italy. Like, and it's okay to treat yourself once in a while. Buy yourself something nice a few times a month or once a month. It does depend on how much you're earning. Of course, it depends on how much you're going to save, but like, it's also important to enjoy the experience and not just work and sleep.
Has working on cruise ships completely altered anybody else's perception of having money? I fear that I'm never going to feel as financially well off as I did on my first couple of professional contracts working on ships. And the thing is, logically, I can tell myself, well, obviously you had lots of money, A, because the pay is good, but B, because you weren't paying rent, you weren't buying food shops, you didn't have to pay for anything like petrol or car expenses, etc, etc, etc. But here's little old me now sitting with, being transparent here, I've got a bit in my savings, which is lucky because some people don't even have savings, so I should be feeling great about that. But 22, 23-year-old Jodie sat there with, at times, like 20 grand in the savings, like sometimes 30.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm never going to be satisfied again. Anyone relate?
Oh yeah, I relate. Especially because I worked on cruise ships from such a young age. I didn't quite realise how expensive living was. I was just living in my little cruise ship bubble. I wasn't paying tax. I didn't own a car, wasn't paying insurance for anything, wasn't paying rent, wasn't paying for food. If I wanted to go out to eat with my friends, especially like when I worked on Virgin, it was free. So I could go out for a nice meal with my friends if I had time off for free, apart from like if I had an alcoholic drink or something. You know, I wasn't paying for like weekend trips away or holidays because I was on the cruise ship. I was in a different destination every day. So It's mad. It's a mad lifestyle. It was the best thing I ever did, and I still to this day think that everyone should do it, because it is dystopian, but it is also bloody fantastic. Now, the other thing people want to know is, how are you earning this money? Because some people have seen TikToks where people are getting paid in cash. That was certainly how it happened when I started on cruise ships. There was a lot of people who got paid in cash. Now more so people are getting paid into a bank account that the cruise line set up.
So yeah, most cruise lines, they pay you twice a month, which is every fortnight, which is pretty dope. And all the money is deposited into a bank account which the company provides. So in most cases, the money has a 1-week delay or a 7-day delay, which has something to do with cutoff dates. So let me explain. So for example, if the payday is on November 21, they're paying you from November 1st up to November 14, and that is the cutoff date. So don't be confused with your first paycheck if it is not what you're expecting. You just came through the cutoff dates. If what I've said now doesn't make sense, they have finance people on board. They can explain better to you. And also, did you know some other departments like Shore Excursion, they have 3 pay dates. So they have 2 regular and 1 for bonuses, which is pretty cool.
So again, this varies a lot depending on the cruise line, what job you do, where you're from. Not really where you're from. The first 2. You might get paid every month. I always got paid monthly, but some people have always got paid 2 weekly. Some people get paid in cash. Some people get paid into their bank account. The bank account that you will have will usually be a Brightwell, My Crew Wallet, or Ocean Pay. They're all pretty shit, if I'm honest. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a bank account, but the reason I say they're not great is because of the, like the safety laws around them. So I always say you want to transfer your money out of the cruise line bank account as fast as you can. So I always did mine into, not always, but probably from when I started working on Virgin Voyages, I always transferred my money into my TransferWise account, just because their exchange rates were really good. And also it was really easy to send money to multiple accounts in multiple different countries, which if you're earning in dollars and you're from the Philippines, but you've got someone who you're supporting in England, it just makes it easier if you've got a bank account that makes that easy. So I would definitely set up like a TransferWise account or something if you're going on your cruise ship, but I have spoke about that more in other videos.
My most asked question is how much paychecks are. They are $2,000 every 2 weeks. That's what I've averaged. After taxes, of course.
Whether you have to pay tax or not completely depends on what country you're from. So some people do extremely well on cruise ships. So there really are 2 camps. There are some people who are like, working on cruise ships is the best thing ever, and there are a lot of people who are like, why would anyone sign up for that? You're earning $2 an hour. But you have to look at it 360. Yes, when you break it down, your hourly rate is abysmal, but you are able to save more than you would if you earn more on land, because you don't have the expenses and you're also traveling the world, meeting new people, blah 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 blah. So I hope this video has given you a better idea of what you can expect when you start working on board a cruise ship in whatever department you start in. Yeah, you're going to start off with a very normal salary, as you would in any job, whether it's on land or at sea. But the longer you're with a company, the more departments you try, the further you go up the ranks, the more money you are going to earn. And there really is great potential to be earning a lot of money on board a cruise ship. But anyway, guys, that is it for this video. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you want to share your salary, or if you have any salary questions, if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. I will look forward to reading them. But if you have enjoyed this video, then please press the subscribe button. We are nearly at 100,000 subscribers, and it would be unbelievable to hit it by the end of 2025. But if you are already subscribed, thank you so much for always returning. I appreciate you more than you know. But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next video.